Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we conclude a 5-day program on the pandemic and a reexamination and reevaluation of the vaccines that were mandated by the United States, by virtually all European governments and governments around the world, to the catastrophic detriment to public health, to civil liberties, and to people's faith in the medical profession in very, very profound ways. I want to first just acknowledge that we're still broadcasting. As I said on Monday, 5 days ago, we were unsure as to whether the algorithms were going to shut us down because the conversation that we've had over the last 5 days would not have been allowed a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe even 6 months ago. But because of the election of Donald Trump and the fact that Robert Kennedy Jr. is now the Secretary of Health and Human Services, other distinguished individuals are now at the head of the Food and Drug Administration and the National Institute of Health, the Center for Disease Control. It looks like there is now the opportunity that we've not had since 2020, when the pandemic was declared and everybody was forced into lockdown and isolation, and there was a repression on social media of any kind of dissent. We now have the opportunity to do what democracies can and should do, and that is have open public dialogue about matters that pertain to the public interest. And if there's any issue that pertains to the public interest, it's what happened to the world during the pandemic. And so we are very pleased that we're still on the air and that civic virtue is beginning to reemerge around this very seminal issue that in some ways transformed the world more indelibly than virtually any other public event that I can think of in my lifetime. And I want to underscore that as we conclude. You know, when one thinks of the war in Ukraine or even what's going on in the Middle East or other major events that have taken place, the Arab Spring back in 2014, the Occupy movement, the Vietnam War, the invasion of Iraq, Afghanistan. I just think of major events of our time. For most of us, we watched it on the news, and we may have had very strong opinions about it, but at no time was there the repression of free speech like there was around that singular event of the pandemic that affected everybody, because everybody was under lockdown. Everybody was in isolation. Everybody was mandated to get the vaccines. And to not get them took a remarkable act of courage. And so our opportunity now to assess is a very important moment because we're dealing with an event that affected us all and directly affected through deleterious effects from the vaccines many, many people that we all know. So this has been humanity rising at its best, being on the cutting edge, being courageous enough to tackle some of the really gnarly, complicated, controversial issues of our time. And it's in that spirit that I thank all of you for joining us here today on Humanity Rising. It's an important moment for our democracy.